Hey, Alan.
Hey, Loreen, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. I want to thank you for taking some time tonight to join us on the Music on the Menu podcast. For those tuning in online, let me give her an introduction. We are talking to Loreen Bohannon. Loreen is a sound engineer. She does front of house sound for national acts all across the country. Here locally, she did a lot of work before she went off out to California. She did a lot of work with Cabinet. She had been doing some work with Rusted Root here in Pennsylvania and the East. People that listen to my show on Sunday certainly remember Loreen, or as we called her, Lobo, because she was the producer of the Music on the Menu show for the first couple of years after I came over to the river. And she was also the drive time host on the river every day, and she was also the host of the Party on the Patio in the summer at Mohegan Sun. So a familiar face and voice to all of us, and it is great to have you on the phone. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. That's quite an introduction.
Well, I always, I start doing these interviews, and if I call you Lobo during the interview, it's just because that's what I always call you, although I also call you Loreen. It's funny because I was doing one of these podcast interviews about 2 weeks ago with our mutual friend, Richie Kosas. And I guess while Richie and I were doing the interview, you popped up on Facebook and put a comment on his page about him doing the interview. And he said, hey, Loreen just popped on. And it actually took me a minute to register who we met because I always called you Lobo.
I'm so not used to it because it's such a regional name. Nobody calls me Lobo. It was just my radio name. It was such anybody knew the story of that, they'd just laugh at how it came to be. When I first got on the radio, it was just my first day in the studio was kind of like my first day on the radio. And they were kind of like, well, you have to pick up a DJ name. And I was like, well, my first name and last name could be Lobo, so what about Lobo? He was like, perfect.
There you go.
There's your radio name. Perfect.
And you had that for a couple of years here when you were, on 105 The River.
Yep.
Loreen, we're going to talk about, how you're doing and what you've been doing since you've been out in California, what artists you've been working with, and how the industry that you work in is handling, this pandemic COVID-19 situation, which has shut down the country pretty much for the past 2 months. But I always like to begin these podcast interviews with, the simple question: how are you? How's everybody in your circle of family and friends doing? Is everybody hanging in there all right through all this?
I mean, it's health-wise, everyone's hanging in there pretty well. Emotionally and mental health-wise, it's a little more difficult to gauge that one. Even for me, I kind of find it a wandering bag during the week on how I'm going to feel and, how I'm dealing with the situation. Particularly because I was a live engineer, my career focused around the live side of things. So,
sure.
And most of my friends as well. I'm not a studio engineer. I mean, I did some broadcast work. I can do it, but that's not where my passion was. And that's not where I built my career. So, it's been really rough, honestly, we don't know is the issue is we don't know. We don't know if our business is coming back, when our business is coming back, how it's coming back, what it's going to resemble when it comes back. So all of these uncertainties are lending to so much uncertainty into my own life and everybody's life. I mean, I spent 14 years building this career that was just wiped away in 2 days. I was about to do the biggest show of my life. I was about to do the Houston rodeo with Lizzo. I was in rehearsals on my way to my last rehearsal before our load in, and we were sold out. Lizzo sold out the Houston rodeo in 7 minutes. 75,000 tickets.
Is that at the stadium where the Texans play?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's a big crowd.
We finally got a band, all that stuff, and then I'm walking into rehearsal that day, and my production manager calls me and goes, hey, where you at? And I'm like, I will be there in 2 seconds. I had stayed behind to pick up some skin tack for the dancers, which is stuff to make it sticky, so their tape sticks to their skin. And he goes, good, because they canceled the rodeo. We have to load out. We don't have stagehands for 4 hours. So it was.
When was that? Was that like the middle of March? Like around
Yeah,
here, everything started going down around St. Patrick's Day here. I'm assuming it was the same there.
Yeah, it was March. I think it was March 12th. It was March 13th, and I was on a plane home on March 14th, and pretty much March 15th is pretty much when everything went down across everywhere else in the country. So.
Well, South by Southwest went down that same week, right? And so that was
that was the first one. Yeah, that's where we were like, man, South by, or everyone was kind of there like, it's not going to happen. It's Austin. It's not going to be. And then a week later, it was us. So everything canceled. Like, I watched my whole industry, every live show, everything, every conference, every door shutter in a matter of a week. I watched the entirety of my career and so many other people's that I love disappear.
It's been so hard, and I think you hit the nail on the head with the uncertainty. I've been talking to so many people in different walks of life that are involved with music, including some people, on the promotion side and venue side of things. And normally if a show is canceled or postponed, it's usually rescheduled immediately. If it's, if there's a problem with, someone's ill, or, in Mick Jagger and the Stones last year, they canceled the shows because Mick was sick. And then they said I think they announced the makeup dates the same day they announced the postponement dates, because everybody's, all right, we'll be fine in 3 months, but we don't know what we're going to be like in 3 months, and no one knows how everybody's going to feel. How did you're in Los Angeles, right?
Yeah.
How did the city react today when I think it was the mayor of LA extended the stay at home to August?
I think
that made the national news today, LA, because of that.
Well, I think we were all expecting it here in LA. Like, I'm not from here, so I don't necessarily have the same mentality as a lot of people in California. So I tend to look a little bit more to information and things like that. I find that here a lot of people just kind of go with what they're told. So it's been an interesting transition. Like, on top
You're an East Coast girl.
Yeah, I miss New York really bad right now. Like, I saw a comedian on Facebook that put it really well the other day. Like, I really miss a Donna or a Karen from the Bronx right now, like in line at stores where there's people carts of toilet paper and you're only supposed to take 2. Like, they're like, hey, you think you're special? Like, what? It says 2. Who do you think you are? Like, we need some of those over here instead of everyone be like, oh no, don't engage. But I kind of miss that. But on top of that, we also have AB5, which a lot of people don't know what AB5 is, but AB5 is a law passed in California that is overreaching. It is one of the most destructive laws that's been passed in our country to the workforce. Basically, they tried to pass a law that would force Uber and Lyft to make their members employees, but what it's really done is it's an overreaching bill to address all freelancers. So all freelance work in California is pretty much at a halt. No one can be a freelancer. I can't get paid on a 1099 unless I go through a ridiculous list of qualifications to meet what a business is in California.
Like a private contractor situation, which is
which is
common in entertainment.
In our entire business, in entertainment, in film, in broadcast. I mean, translators, editors, tutors, everybody that's paid on a 1099 right now can't get paid on a 1099 in California. And it's already
why? Because you need to be an employee. I work as a freelancer for a couple of newspapers.
That's what I'm saying.
That's my choice to do that. I don't expect
now
them
you
to
understand.
Wow.
That's exactly what it is. And it was a very union heavy-leaning woman who was the lead on the bill, and it's gone up for repeal twice now since January, and both times it's been voted down. So that's a big factor as well to what's going on in California. Like, it has the highest rate of employment, not just because of COVID, but also because Californians don't have access to easy jobs. Like, I'm qualified to be online to be a tutor or an editor or something, but I can't even apply for these jobs because they're not taking applications from people in California. So
that's a story that maybe because of COVID-19 just dominating everything in the news. I mean, even the presidential election is taking a backseat. Normally we'd be talking quite a bit more about that than we would be, but this virus has,
Well, there's
knocked
a lot.
everything off the
Well,
headline. So
for me, everyone's paying so much attention to the virus, they're not seeing all the other things that are happening right now, which is happens so much in our country. We see the big shiny thing. Yeah, COVID-19 is here, but COVID's been around for 8 weeks now. There's other incredible changing things that are happening in our country that no one is talking about. Like yesterday, Space Force launched their second mission to space, one of our first payload missions to space ever with the U.S. Space Force. Like, that's incredible news. It's amazing for our country that they can make fun of the name all they want, but we actually have a space division of our military for the first time, Like, these are incredible and far-reaching implications in our culture and society. Even so, as COVID is going to, change our lives, this is going to change our lives more. So there's some incredible things going on that are just being, rushed away because of this, and also heartbreaking things happening. The woman who was killed, I think her name is Deanna, who was murdered in her home for a botched police raid. There's other terrible things going on that are just being covered by this, so it's hard to see it. And on top of that, there's so many people dying, incredible musicians and artists and things like that. Our older generation of artists are disappearing as well. Like this month, I've seen at least 7 or 8 older generation actors and musicians pass away.
what were you supposed to do besides the big show in Texas? You talked a lot. You're that too. You were going to do that one too?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I've done Coachella the last 4 years. The first 2 years I did it on stage with Rat Sound. I worked with them. And then the year in 2018, I was there with a band called Skip Marley, who was Bob Marley's son and his band. And then last year I was there with Lizzo. And Lizzo turned into the craziest year of my life with one of the biggest artists of 2019. So Coachella is a big spot in my year and for my career. I'm one of the few people that gets to say I can go there. And I have a unique relationship with Rat because I worked for them. So I could pretty much go to whatever stage I want and go right up on stage, and I know the guys on the stage, So I lived a really unique life in that world. So it was like summer camp for all the roadies. Like, that's where we saw our friends, and that's where all the acts were. And it was a real gauge in our business. And it just, I was supposed to do that. I was supposed to have a tour, it's in talks for a tour with, Liz Phair and a couple of other bands,
That's what I was going to ask you. Was there a summer tour also that you were looking at maybe?
Yeah, I was looking at a lot of work. There were a couple of things on the table for me for the year. And those got wiped away pretty quickly.
Ticketmaster, I just saw they laid off 500 people yesterday. I guess it's because they're not selling any tickets. And, even when they're talking about sports coming back in the fall or baseball as soon as July, they're still talking about empty stadiums. And so the ticket side of things is
that's the scary part.
It's just not happening. So, I saw that there was this plan, I think it was in Wisconsin, somewhere in the Midwest. They were going to do a show a week or two ago in a theater. And it was kind of like the size of the Kirby's, it looked like, because they actually showed the seating chart online, the story I was reading, because it was going to be, I guess, the first concert done. It wound up being canceled, I guess, anyway. But they had this
because there was only 223 seats for a 1,000-seat auditorium.
They had everybody was going to be really spaced out. They were going to have people 3-4 rows apart, and it just looked so strange. And I thought, well, is that even fiscally feasible? I mean, if you sold that many tickets for a show, you would consider that show tanked.
If you have sold that many tickets for a show, the tickets would have to be like $800 a ticket, which is something that I've talked about with people in my industry. I think some of the things we're going to see happen next are going to be in the initial phase of our business. I think we're going to see shows that have a live audience in them, but it's going to be like 50, 100, 200 cap, right? And all of those tickets are going to be extremely expensive. Like, I'm talking like $500 or $600 a seat. Like, it's going to be like a new wealth class type thing.
Wow.
Like the haves and have not. And then everybody else is going to have to stream it online or have another viewing room. And even that, you won't have a viewing room. It's all going to be online, and you'll have to pay for the stream to get access to the link or something. Or there's a couple of interesting new applications that have come out that directly address streaming and pay-per-view, things like streaming. So I think that's going to be one of the and I might be wrong, like who knows what's going to happen, but I truly believe as an engineer, like as someone who's been in this business for 14 years, that's going to be one of the first models, the money models we see, because fiscally it's not, no one's going to be able to perform for 200 people in an auditorium if we keep tickets even remotely close to what they were, even on the high end. Like it still doesn't even touch the basic minimum of a production.
It just also seems weird. I mean, from the artist standpoint, you're standing up on stage. If you walked out to a crowd like that, if that was a regular show, and you walked out on stage and you saw a row of people, and then 6 empty rows, and then a couple more people, and then 4 more, your heart would sink. You would be like, "Ugh, this isn't going to be a good show." I mean, not as far as attend. I mean, just as far a vibe. It would just be, it just would have no vibe. And so, you know, I can't see that being the plan long term.
Well, I guess the truth of the matter is what are you willing to do to see music? Because we might not have a choice. Do you miss it enough to be able to sit in an auditorium? And as an artist, you miss playing live enough to be able to sit in a room like that? And are you going to pay the ticket for it? Those are the uncertainties we're facing. And
there's a handful of artists. Yeah, there's a handful of artists. I could probably count on one hand that I would say, yeah, all right, I'll go to a show if it's going to be that way. You know, just, you know, because I just want to see them, and I don't care about the atmosphere or the vibe or you know, that communal crowd experience, which is a part of a concert, as you know. I remember when we did that interview. I did interviews with newspaper a couple years ago, and you said that was one of your favorite parts of your job, is helping present that event to the people. You know, you mentioned the people in that interview as being, I think you said it was your favorite part of the job.
The magic.
Yeah.
The magic that happens when you're doing a show.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that when we did that story for Electric City. So, and now we've got no people, you know. I think, how do you feel about, for your position, I mean, once things get rolling again, they're going to need you. I mean, you know, you're not going to be able to do concerts without people that do what you do. So, you know, do you feel pretty confident that once things get rolling again, your work will come back? Because they can't do shows without sound and lighting people.
I definitely do, but I think the issue is that initially the jobs are going to be low paid. The gigs are going to be low paid. The large artists maybe will be able to support their crews and stuff like that, but the money's not going to be there. So my worry is for people that are qualified, like I'm qualified, is our actual jobs going to be there, or is it going to be a matter of an oversaturated market with low-paying jobs, which I think is the reality of probably what's going to happen initially, and then it's going to be a slow phase-in. I think the more successful of my people, you know, someone like myself, like during this, the way that I'm adapting to this is I just incorporated a business in California, like basically March, like as soon as COVID happened, I incorporated a business in California. And I'm going to be producing some like content and courses and things like that. You know, I've had a decently successful freelance career for 14 years. I've never really had a normal job, like ever, pretty much. So I think some people can learn how to do that from me. So I'm going to be producing some courses and content. A podcast. I'm going to be producing my own podcast, and some other things because I don't know what's coming.
Or
and I don't know.
You mentor people on running sound?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I do a lot of things. Like I do some leadership stuff. I'm starting to speak a lot more at seminars and webinars, and speak a lot more with brands and for brands and different things. So my years in the business are starting to pay off, at least in this, in knowledge and connections. And I guess respect. Like I've earned my respect in this business, even though, you know, I have had a short time in California. I've only been here for 2.5 years, but while I've been here, I've done some incredible things with my career. So I've made some big moves, and there's not a lot of women doing what I'm doing. So I'm trying to move to be like a face of women in this business, because right now it's so precarious for women engineers and stuff like that, because we're going to lose an entire generation or 2 generations of women coming up that can't support themselves through this, who are just baby engineers who are like 2 or 3 years into getting a full-time live sound paycheck, and their whole industry disappeared and probably isn't coming back for a couple of years. And so for me, what's been driving me during this is seeing all these audio large brand webinars and educational things that don't have any women in them at all, not one. And they're extraordinarily talented, experienced women in this business. And I do not want us to get erased again from an already male-dominated business that we fought so hard to be visible in, as it is.
How many other women do you encounter when you're out there on the road working with other artists that do, sound?
Very few. Very few sound engineer women, particularly as you get higher into the rankings. I toured with what they would call an A-list artist this year. I got to be with Lizzo. She was one of the biggest artists of 2019 next to Billie Eilish. And I stood on stages this year with some of the biggest names you can imagine in music. Taylor Swift, Jonas Brothers, BTS, like all the Korean things, like you name it. I was pretty much on Sam Smith, and I'm not like, that's not just me. I stood on stage at Made in America Fest with, Beyonce and Jay-Z. It was an incredible journey, but I get to see what happens after this. Like, there are no women, and there are very few coming up. Like, there were no women standing on stage with me. Like, you looked across the stage, you could look at every desk out there. There was not a female tech on stage. There wasn't a female engineer. There's very few large acts that carry female engineers. I don't know why. I still, I've been doing this for 14 years, and still I walk on site and I'm immediately often discounted, as I walk on, just because I'm a woman. Like, I automatically must not know as much as a dude. And it's still like that for me. A lot of guys that I work with have gotten to the same level of career that I struggled for 14 years to get to in 5. My front of house engineer only has been in the business total for 5 years. He was front of house for Lizzo and A$AP Rocky and all these guys, and I love Brandon. But if it were a woman, like, I have to have twice as much experience. I have to be twice as good just to get the same position, and that's still true.
When we talked for the Electric City for that article, I believe it was 3 years ago. I think it was 2017. You had said that, you're jogging my memory now, some of the things that we talked about in the articles. You said that the one place that you didn't experience that sort of, discrimination was when you first started with Rock Street. That Billy, right out of the gate, treated you just like everybody else, but that you found, so maybe, I don't want to, I'm trying to paraphrase here, but so maybe you thought that that's how it was going to be everywhere. And then once your career started growing and you start moving on and moving with other artists, you realized that wasn't the case everywhere.
Well, I think I was always aware of it. What I wasn't aware of when I was back in Pennsylvania until I came here was how unique me and Rock Street was, how Billy treating me with Rock Street was, and how the guys treating me was. It is not normal. Women are not accepted in like that. Like, they're really not. Like, I couldn't even lift a speaker. I barely knew what an XLR cable was, and Billy had me at shows. Richie and Billy had me at shows. I mean, I was doing van shows with Gene when I was 17 years old. You know what I mean? Like, but to be fair, I didn't have family. My mom passed away when I was 16, and, Billy and Richie really moved into like a family role in my life. Particularly Billy became very paternal with me and is a big reason I am doing all of what I'm doing. So, you just never know. So I didn't realize until I came out here and I worked with all these people. Like, I knew I was going to be one of the only women. I didn't know I was going to be like the only one. But it's still the case, and I worked really hard in the years I was here to try to pull more women into prominent positions, to garner enough respect for myself and enough work that I was able to, offer work to other women who wouldn't get the chance necessarily from a man. And that's something that I was always very passionate about in my own career. I'm not just doing this for me. Like, I have to succeed because there are other women that are going to come after me that I'm going to be the role model for, that people are going to know me. Like, there are girls, and it is wild to me that people, like, send me messages and now on Facebook and Instagram, all this stuff, like, I look up to you, you're my role model, and, like, I want to be like you when I grow up. Like, I've been following you for years, and that's wild to me because I don't think of my career like that. Like, it's not, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to do what I love to do and be successful in it, you know?
Well, you're pioneering. Was there someone that you looked up to in the female role that did this before you?
No.
I didn't think so. I mean, you are
I didn't
really...
have any. I mean, there are, but I didn't find them till later in my career. There's a woman, she lives in Scranton, actually. You should maybe, I'll see if we can't post something up, because her husband also is a touring person, but her name is Michelle Pananato-Sabalicik.
Okay.
And she lives in Scranton, and she's a front of house engineer who's been around for years, and she's toured with like the Flaming Lips and the Indigo Girls and Mr. Big and all these incredible acts, and she lives in Scranton. And I met her when I was doing Trans-Siberian Orchestra. I did a lot of union work, and the union guys, Jake and all those wonderful humans at the Wilkes-Barre Union, are my family and friends too, and they really took me in when I was younger as well. And I did a lot of work with them, and I owe them a lot to my success as well, because like the arena gigs, working at the arena, the Kirby Center gave me so many connections and let me see so much coming up when I was young and what was possible in this business. And I was working at the arena for a Trans-Siberian Orchestra show, and I was on the sound crew, and I met the monitor engineer. And I've always been pretty good at what I did, so I always ended up, like, I'd always be one they would request back, and I'd always end up working with them because I knew what I was doing. So I worked with him, and his name was Scott, and Scott knew Michelle's husband. I believe his name is Jimmy. He also is the stage manager, production manager for Montage Mountain as well, I believe.
Okay.
And he introduced me to her husband, who then introduced me to Michelle. And this was about 7 years into my career. And Michelle is the first woman I had ever met that did this like this. And so she talked to me. And I would say she mentored me, but Michelle really, like, we didn't keep in touch very often, but the few times we would be in touch, it would kind of me being like, here's all the crazy experiences that happened to me. Is this normal? And she would be like, yeah, that happened to me, and that's completely normal. And I'd be like, okay, cool. Like, I can keep going. That was kind of how it was for me with her. And then she introduced me to Sound Girls, the organization Sound Girls, that I'm involved with now, that I do some mentoring with and stuff like that, that helps represent young. Sound Girls is an organization that was started by Michelle and another woman named Carrie Keys, who is the monitor engineer for Pearl Jam. And it is a organization who caters to young women or women that are interested in sound or wanting to get involved in sound, and gives them resources and education and mentors like people like me, and things like that. It's a Facebook group and a website.
That's really cool that there's some organization like that. So when you start doing your podcasts and things, there's already going to be a little bit of an audience out there that's somewhat already pulled together that you could share them with. Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's why California was important, because Sound Girls was here. There was a lot of women out here. Terry was here. So that's why I kind of came to California too, because they were just more of a network of women out here.
Let's take a step back a little bit to a couple of years ago when you left Northeast PA.
Mm-hmm.
So it was probably the last time I saw you was when we were still doing the show together. Other than the interview that we did a couple of years ago. So I was the last time I saw you, I guess it was 3 years ago when we did that interview. Obviously, we're friends on Facebook and so forth. But after that, like you had the cabinet stuff here, you did the stuff at the Warped Tour, you were doing stuff at Rusted Root, but you went out. I think one of the first big tours you got nationally was with Michael Bolton, if I'm correct. Or was there one before?
Big, yeah. I mean, Rusted Root was pretty big.
Sure.
Bolton was my biggest like permanent tour. I came to California. I moved to California in October, and I was on tour with another band that I had to get off of tour with because I got an ulcer. And so when I got back, I talked to some friends. I did some work with Eighth Day Sound is one of the companies that I would tech with out here, and that led me to get a gig at Revolt Studios, which is a New York, it's P. Diddy's TV station. It airs in New York. I did a broadcast show A1 with those guys, and it was like a whole weird situation where I came in. I was supposed to be the A2, which is the person who just mics people up. I'm not mixing anything, but the guy who was A1, who was supposed to be the studio mixer, was totally like out of his league. Like it was like 16 channels of in-ears, a bunch of mics, and even though it's TV, so it's a lot slower than a live show, it's still a lot of stuff, and he had to set it up from scratch. And this guy had no idea, so I kind of came in. It was my first show with them. I was working with this guy named Shorty. Like I call him like the Hobbit sound guy because he's about 5 feet tall and he has this real gruff voice, and he has to be like 60. Hey, what are you doing? And so he and I basically made it go, and the guy switched me out. In the TV world, it's different than sound. Like your job is a different pay rate. So like he had to switch me out so I had the proper pay rate for the job and then qualification, because I guess you get credit. And so I worked with that guy, Shorty, and I did the show. It was great. We had a good time. I brought in another friend of mine to help, and everything went well. Another live person. They love us in TV because we're really fast. And so we did that, and then I didn't think anything of it. Like months go by. Don't hear from Shorty again. We had exchanged numbers. January rolls around. I get a call from Shorty, and he goes, hey. I was like, hey, Shorty, what's up? He goes, you want to do monitors for Michael Bolton? And I was like, yes. He's like, I don't know if they're going to want a chick, but I'm going to put your name anyway. I can't think of anyone else I would recommend. And I was like, it's like a compliment. He's like an old guy, so like I take it with a grain of salt. Like I get what he was saying there. Like it doesn't matter that I'm a chick. Like I'm the most qualified person he knows. I appreciate that. But that's how I got the Michael Bolton gig, and I went out with them. And my very first show with them was in Brazil. I almost lost the gig because he wanted me to like last minute take a gig in Indio here. And I refused to do it because I had reached out to my contact at ASA Sound. I had just moved out here at this point. I'd only been here for like 3 months. It was January. I was dead. I had no money. I was driving Lyft, and I reached out. It was right around my birthday. I reached out to ASA, and I was like, hey, listen, Megan, like I really, like I need some work. Like my car broke down, and previously I was driving and my car broke down. My engine starter went. I didn't have any money. I'm like, I need work. Anything you can throw at me, please. I will take whatever it is. And she gave me work. It was with Beck, too, by the way.
Oh, okay.
So I had that gig, and literally that one of those days was one of the Michael Bolton shows that he called me for. And I was like, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I've already committed to this, and like this person gave me this gig because I really needed it, and I really appreciate it, and it's a gesture of goodwill, and I can't back out of it a week before the gig. And he said to me, he goes, normally I would fight back on you, but I like really respect that you said that to me because I know you'll show me the same level of loyalty if we hire you. And I was like, yeah. So I got the gig.
So you dealt directly with Michael on that?
No, I dealt with his tour manager, Milo.
Okay.
Stephen Milo, who's been with Michael his entire career. Milo has been there with Michael from the beginning. He like helped him produce his records in the beginning, and he's been with him ever since, like 25 years. So
how many shows did you do with Michael Bolton?
I did a lot. I mean, I was a year and a half with Michael,
wow.
And I love them. I love those people. I would have absolutely gone back. Like if that was kind of the plan when this slowed down, I was gonna I don't really have to do a lot of work this year, so I kind of hit them back up, and I was kind of gonna go out with them because it might not be like the level where I was, but I love touring with them. Those guys, they're my family. It was a great time. They treated me with respect. Like I was one of the gang. Like they were incredible musicians. It was just a really great space. I really loved touring with them. So.
Oh, I mean, I think he's a Grammy-winning artist. I mean, he's probably playing beautiful rooms.
I mean,
crowds,
I did incredible venues. I mean, I did the Kennedy Center. I played in we did rehearsals in the same hall that the original Star Wars score was recorded in. Like, I was to some incredible places with him. The Sydney. Ironically, I didn't play the Sydney Opera House with Michael. I played the Sydney Opera House with Lizzo. But I left Michael Bolton in May of 2019 for Lizzo because her tour was becoming so insane that I couldn't balance the two anymore. And my last show was at the Kennedy Center with them.
Wow.
So I got to do some incredible things while I was, in these short years.
You sure have, and it's been really great to catch up with you. I had a feeling that when I asked you what the future might hold, you were going to say the same thing that everybody does, which is, who knows right now. But it's hard for me to imagine things not eventually getting back to the way they were, simply because it's what everybody wants. And when Americans want something, it tends to happen. But
it's not just Americans; it's the whole world. Music is the center of the culture of so many. I'm not my job the last few years. I've circumvented the globe twice. I've been all the way around twice in the last 2 years, and everywhere I go, music is so central to every culture. The Netherlands, Australia, Spain, Italy, wherever it is, music is so central to the culture. So it's not just Americans. It's the world.
Europe, England, some of our best music, rock and roll music anyway, has obviously come from England. So, you see those the Brits over there at Wembley Stadium at those concerts. It's just
they're already having drive-in concerts in Germany already. That's how bad they want music to come back. Okay, so it's not just us. But I think with the scale where I was at, where I was about to do a 75,000 person concert, I don't think we're seeing a show like that come back for a couple of years.
Really, years?
Yeah, years. You were around in 2008. You remember how the housing market crash affected our industry for years afterwards. Think about this. Every show was canceled for 2020. How is that ripple effect going to affect our industry for years?
Yeah.
So that's where my head is. I'm creating multiple streams of revenue. I've always been an entrepreneur, so why not just focus on a different type of business now?
Well, I got to give you, respect and props for immediately getting in gear. Some people are sitting on their hands, waiting for, to see what happens. And, you're doing that in one way, but in another way, you're not. You're also going to, I don't even know if I want to call it a plan B, because it sounds like it might be your plan A.
It's like me testing spaghetti. I'm just kind of throwing things at the wall to figure out what sticks at this point.
Yeah, well.
But
at least you're throwing something. Some people aren't.
Well, I've never been good at sitting around and waiting, which is why I moved to California and randomly decided to move to California 2 years ago. So I don't wait around for things to happen to me. I go find them. So.
Well, it was great to catch up with you, and I know that you, when you were here, were always a huge supporter of the show on Sunday night. You were one of the reasons that it came over to the river. I know you and some of the other folks at Bold Gold, kind of had your eye on it and brought me over, and it's been a great experience there for the past 6-7 years, and you were there in the beginning. We did a lot of shows together. So, just your interest in your knowledge of local music, was very much appreciated here. And, we miss you.
Of course. We have some incredible people in that area. And that was my point of the show when it started. You remember, we had the discussion. I wanted to have this show to feature the incredible musicians that we have in our area. You don't have to go somewhere like New York to see incredible music. We have so many right in our little valley.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's been, it's been an amazing, I've been doing it for 28 years now. And so many talented musicians, so many great songs. And still getting new stuff sent every single week. To play. I think I told you before we were setting up the interview, but we've been off our show since first week of April or something like that. Once everything the casino closed, so
yeah.
that was a big part of the reason, obviously. But hopefully we'll be back on the air soon. And we're having a great time working with DC over the past, I guess it's 3.5 years now. But I know that you were a big part of putting music on the menu on the river. You and all the great people at Bold Gold.
Vince very much is passionate about music, so he was a big supporter of my idea. He really helped make that happen. And honestly, so did Paul Filiberto. Because he was my co-host.
Yeah,
he was my co-host for a little while, so he really helped me push that to them. And he's really, he was the catalyst that really pushed that through for us and got that started. So
I remember I had lunch with Paul, and I think it was on August 16th of 2013, 14.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was a good omen because he was like, I said, it's Elvis Presley Day, so, and obviously working with Duke and everybody, we have a good team there, and Michael G and everybody, and, so every time I walk in,
great team.
Great team, and, you're still part of the family, so anytime you're around, come in, swing by, sit in with Music on the Menu at DC, and I will we'll play some good bands, and we'll have a good time. Open invitation always.
For sure. Of course I will. I was supposed to come back in April, but COVID changed my mind, so.
Well, changed a lot of things, that's for sure. Well, we'll change a lot.
Indeed, Alan, indeed.
I wish you all the best. I have a feeling that, maybe it won't be a couple of years. You might be right, but, when you're back out there running sound and you're in some 50,000 seat arena and you're making everybody happy, this will maybe
send you a picture.
Yeah, send me a picture. All right.
Thank you for having me, Alan. It was a pleasure. It was nice catching up with you.
You too. Hang in there.
Yes, you too. Stay safe and send my love to everybody back in Pennsylvania, okay?
Will do.
All right.
All right.
Thank you. We done?